Okay, we're just gonna do it live, boys. I was sitting on the stream with Duke there, and he had it set up where no one could see what was going on in the stream because he's afraid of getting a strike or whatever. And I get it. I just don't give a fuck. I'm fucking sick of this shit. So we're gonna fucking do it over here. We're going to actually
critical,
hear it.
but this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done.
Why is NBC News in my
energy
chat?
superpower for the future, not just the current? And that's what absolutely makes sense.
Oh,
and
that's
we
the
start
NBC News.
about
I'm looking
how
at the
do we
wrong
mitigate
thing. Is
these
anyone
disasters.
here?
Thank you. Senator, I want to give you an opportunity to respond there. The governor mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now,
give me a fucking
Governor Walz said I think is important to touch upon, because when we talk about clean energy, I think that's a slogan that often the Democrats will use here. I'm talking, of course, about the Democratic leadership. And the real issue is that if you're spending hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, Tim, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels. So if you really want to make the environment cleaner, you've got to invest in more energy production. We haven't built a nuclear facility.
You really want to make the environment cleaner instead of buying a used motorcycle?
We got to invest more in it. Kamala Harris has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing
Senator, your time is up. Governor, would you like to respond?
Well, look, we're producing more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil, but the folks know, and we're not producing more oil. These are not liberal folks. These are not folks that are Green New Deal folks. These are farmers that have been drought one year, massive flooding the next year. They understand that it makes sense. Look, our #1 export cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota this summer. And thinking about how do we respond to that, we're thinking ahead on this. And what Kamala Harris has been able to do in Minnesota, we're starting to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed allows us to think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to Mar-a-Lago, say, give me money for my campaign, and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that. And an all-above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor, your time is up. The overwhelming consensus among scientists is that the Earth's climate is warming at an unprecedented rate. Margaret.
Thank you, Nora. We're going to turn now to immigration. The crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border consistently ranks as one of the top issues.
Let's hear about how the borders are in response
Senator
to
Vance,
the border.
Your campaign is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so.
Yes.
Could you be more specific about exactly how this will work? For example, would you deport parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil?
And then the hardest criminals.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I have mother who struggle with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities.
They're bringing in 5 million people a year.
You've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually actually do. So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you ask about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Governor, do you care to respond to any of those specific allegations, including that the vice president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things, children?
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about this, about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history, 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. So let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris is the attorney general of the largest state, a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this. And that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents, detection for drugs, DOJ money to speed up the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no. Told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch. So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall. And Mexico will pay for it.
And held him up.
Less than 2% of that wall got built. And Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling him what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point, Senator Vance said he was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, the question was, will you separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point is that we already have massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug mules, and it is a disgrace, and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, what about our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Okay, real quick.
We fix this issue with a bill that is necessary. But the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it.
Oh, shit.
And we saw this. And Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor
then
said,
why
it's
on
not true.
earth
Don't do it.
you do
There's
your
consequences for this.
own
There's consequences. We could come together.
Why do
Senator
all of
Langford
these
did it.
Democrat
We
parties
could come
have
together and solve
internal
this
polls
if
that
we
tell
didn't
them
let
different
Donald
things
Trump
than what
continue
the
to make it
actual
an issue?
polls say?
And the
The
consequences in
polls that are
Springfield
actually
were
polls are
the
like
governor had to
out there
send
for everyone to see, but
state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school.
Unless
I believe Senator Vance wants to
every
solve
single
this, but
poll
by standing
that's
with
out there
Donald
is
Trump
just a fucking
and
lie.
not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Tim,
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute, but let me just ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our borders are. Kamala Harris has been, and it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you're trying to come across the border illegally, you've got to stay in Mexico, you've got to go back through proper channels. Now, Governor
so much better.
Up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You've got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Dude, that's a huge problem with housing in this country in general. The reason why housing is so expensive.
It is law enforcement that asked for the bill.
Because there's so many.
They helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it. That's because they know we need to do this. Look, this issue of continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable, but it becomes a blame. Look, this bill also gives the money necessary
Wall Street out
to
of
adjudicate.
the house buying.
I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this, and you start to adhere to what we know, American principles. Look, I don't talk about my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about, to the least amongst us, you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it. It's funded. It's supported by the people who do it. And it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Thank you, Governor.
And
just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield,
the devil knows
Ohio
the fucking
does
Bible
have
too.
a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have.
It really doesn't mean a fucking thing, especially when this is the same asshole literally sterilizing kids.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. And
when his whole family is standing up with a sign saying, "Don't vote for this guy."
So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret.
Thank you, Senator,
that was my
for
point.
describing the legal process. We have so much to get
Yes.
to, Senator.
Those laws have
so
been on
much-
the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
That's a huge distinction that the media refuses to make, and they're doing their best to shut them up and smile and move on to the next thing.
The audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process.
You don't explain.
The economy is a top concern for voters. Each of your campaigns has released an economic plan. So let's talk about the specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing, housing, and a renewed child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will increase the nation's deficit by $1.2 trillion. How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. So those of you out there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at. And then making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing, but it costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect. As far as the housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota. 12% more houses in Minneapolis, prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000 child tax
it doesn't say
credit
home buyers
in Minnesota reduces childhood poverty by 1/3. We save money in the long run, and we do the right thing for families. And then getting businesses off the ground. The law as it stands right now is $5,000 tax credit for small business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this. He kept it. He took folks from Mar-a-Lago, said, you're rich as hell, I'm going to give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now he's proposing a 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in. Everyone agrees, including businesses, it would be destabilizing it. It would increase inflation and potentially lead to a recession. Look, this is simple for you.
And
where are we going? Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do. We'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their fair share. When you do that, our system works best. More people are participating in it, and folks have the things that they need.
Senator, I want to give you a moment to respond on that. But similarly, the Wharton School has done an analysis of the Trump plan and says it would increase the nation's deficit by $5.8 trillion. My question is the same for you. How do you pay for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer. A lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do, and some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies, and what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%, open the American southern border and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plan, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom, because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say, look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle-class and working-class Americans. It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
Governor, do you want to respond to that? What has Kamala Harris done for the middle class?
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris's day one was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy. We were already before COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one. Whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're
That's
going
true.
to be president,
None of them can be trusted.
You don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same thing goes with this. And I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, or whatever.
Not if it's a DEI doctor.
You're paying your taxes every year, and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years. And the last year as president. That's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just
what's
asking
wrong with
for
the system
fairness in it, and that's all you want.
Capture.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop. And we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, you're talking about Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy more. Why?
Well, if you're listening tonight and you want billionaires to get tax cuts, you heard what the numbers were. Look, I'm a union guy on this. I'm not a guy who wants
the union's not with you,
but I understand that. Look, we produce soybeans and corn. We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we believe in. I think the thing that most concerns me on this is Donald Trump was the guy who created the largest trade deficit in American history with China. So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him.
The guy who's been blowing China for decades.
I watched it in my communities, and we talked about that. But we had people undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship it over, and we saw people profit. Folks that are venture capital in some cases, putting money into companies that were overseas. We're in agreement that we bring those home. The issue is Donald Trump is talking about it. Kamala Harris has a record, 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice, what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
that's a gross generalization.
that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here, because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you've simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on healthcare then.
Senator, Governor.
Please.
Thank you. Margaret?
We have a lot to get to ahead, gentlemen, on many topics. But right now, I want to talk about personal qualifications. The vice president is often the last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill. to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan
for me, I'm a
people,
knucklehead sometimes.
working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice.
I also lie about a lot.
My commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything.
He's got big
many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching,
it was about his time at Tiananmen Square,
or whether it was being a good soldier, or it was being a good member of Congress.
He did a good job.
Are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
He totally hasn't answered the question.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in
So I'm a liar.
In China
I
during
lie.
the democracy protests.
I lie when it makes me sound
from
better.
that, I learned a
I lie
lot
in ways that make me
what
sound
needed to be in governance.
I lie in ways that make it seem like I did things.
Thank you, Governor.
That's what he means.
Senator Vance, in 2016, you called your running mate, Donald Trump, unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism. You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think you'd be able to deliver
because
on.
I believe
when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out to messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration the first round if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax.
About Russiagate.
Look, the one thing, and you're probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs. And it's the one issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration, it's the one issue where Kamala Harris has run away from Joe Biden's record. Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day, you're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up. Nora?
Thank you. Now to the issue of reproductive rights. Governor Walz, after Roe versus Wade was overturned, you signed a bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support?
I'm going to start doing it like this because no one can hear when I fucking don't pause it to make a comment. I don't know. Can everybody, when you guys talk, can you hear it? Because it seems like I can hear you when you guys talk. Maybe it's just because it's coming through my shit and I'm not wearing headphones. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can hear the whole thing.
Yeah, but everyone's in the chat saying that when I talk, it's all fucked up. So I'm going to pause it when I talk.
Yeah, we can hear you in this chat, but I was listening on YouTube before, and it's very garbled.
Weird. I wonder if the rest of the people are garbled on the YouTube as well. Anyway, I'm going to pause it periodically and let's keep going.
Yeah.
I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion.
No, it's not.
Brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade. 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda's
He has a lot of room.
Okay, him sending it to the states when this is their entire fucking, like, what they're getting everyone to vote about is Roe versus Wade and the abortion issue, which Trump literally fucking did everything that he could to not have an opinion on and not pass any bills on and not put anything forward on, and had, like, he can't even control the fucking judges. He just controls the judges that are in there, right? So, like, the judges that were in there interpreted the law in such a way that it was exactly what everybody wanted. And everybody wanted the states to have the right to choose one way or another based upon the citizenship of that state, because it wasn't a federal issue. If anything, it was a state issue. And that's what they fucking did. And now everyone's mad at him. Everyone's mad at him for it? Okay, cool, whatever. Let's keep
I just want to point out two things real quick.
What
One,
now?
Since Roe versus Wade started, over 30 million Americans have been murdered because of that shit. And in the last year and a half, we have had 1.8 million kids genocided to never exist in this country that would have been American citizens otherwise, because pieces of shit like Tim Walz.
Well, again, like,
I've had abortion, so I'm a piece of shit too.
I won't go into it here, but I'm going to say that, like, I think
it was a good decision for the time.
People's decisions about abortion are their decisions about abortion, and I don't think one way or another, and this is controversial for our group, I don't think the government should be saying anything about it. From a libertarian point of view, think about it. You're telling people what they can and can't do with their bodies and using the power of government to do it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fucking make sense. That being said, I also don't think that the government should be facilitating through funding Planned Parenthood and stuff these things. So there's another side to that coin as well, but I don't think we should be making any laws about it, you know? But that being said, like, if there's a baby that's fucking 9 months in the womb, that's a little touchy subject. I'm not sure what to do about that one. You know, I think that should be on the doctor to be like, fuck you, bitch, you know? But whatever.
I don't know. I was with my wife for 11 years before we had a kid. I'm pretty sure you know how to fuck without having a kid, just saying.
Well, let's keep watching.
She got pregnant on birth control.
Damn it, your seed was too powerful.
Let us keep watching.
Would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child raped and impregnated by her stepfather. Those are horrific. Now, when God asked about...
Okay, and this is another thing that they always do. They're always like, oh, but what about rape? Oh, but what about incest? Oh, but what about the mother of the child?
Right, the less than 5%.
Even the people who were staunchly in favor of fucking, like, pro-life, right? They want every baby to be born. They think all abortion's bad. Even those people are like, I guess rape and incest and life of the mother will make some exceptions, right? No one's arguing that shit, so whatever.
Yeah, but there's always an adoption, though. Just going straight to murder is fucking bullshit.
There was actually a woman who was running for U.S. Senate in 2022 in Pennsylvania who admitted that she was actually the product of a rape.
Because nobody ever dies in birth.
Yeah, that's also Senator Vance said two wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore.
Not very much
Roe
in the
versus
21st
Wade.
century, my
we
man.
made sure that we put women
I think it's
in
around
charge of their
30%.
health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me included, infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the
Yo, who is Goon Bud? What's up?
What's up? Let's get this way.
Did I send you a link? Who are you?
Durbin or Trenton.
Oh, what's up, dude?
What's up?
Oh shit! I was like, fuck, I don't know who the fuck this is. I thought I was getting fucking hacked or some shit. What's up, Trent? How you doing, man?
You send me all these links all the time. I've never even clicked on one before, so I was like, let's see what Honda's got.
We're watching the vice presidential debate and doing commentary. So I'm just pausing it periodically, and we're talking about stuff. So we're a little bit behind live, but yeah.
Fair enough.
That's what we're doing. What's up, man? It's my online motorcycle friend guy. Anyway, so everyone knows who you are. Onward.
catch-all on this is, well, the states will decide what's right for Texas might not be right for Washington. That's not how this works. This is basic human right. We have seen maternal mortality skyrocket in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world. This is about healthcare. In Minnesota, we are ranked first in healthcare for a reason. We trust women, we trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond to the governor's claim? Will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, you know, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do.
It's like abortion. I mean, adoption is never fucking a factor in their conversation. It's never
what he just said about earning the American people's trust back on this issue and like how Republicans sometimes take this too far, I think is 100% spot the fuck on. You know, that's over the target. That is true. And that is why we keep having this debate every single time that there's a presidential election. It's always about abortion because traditionally, like these like super pro-life, staunch pro-life, no abortion ever, or like limit it as much as we possibly can, people that, you know, I don't agree with that. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't agree with like abortions at fucking 9 months either. You know, there's got to be a conversation about this shit at some point. Like, it's not on you, you know, and if it's your family and your kid, that's where you have a say, I think. And I, you know, like, again, I could be wrong, but if that was the Republican position, we wouldn't be talking about this shit right now because they would have nothing to attack on.
Exactly. That's why Trump giving it to the states, it eliminates this talking point forever, and it needs done.
Well, it didn't, though.
It's a talking point that will never be 100% settled, ever.
Yeah. I would just like to point out that the safe haven drop boxes that have been put in Indiana and other places like that in the last couple of years have actually saved several dozen children now.
All right, onward.
I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided country.
Yep, and that's one thing that the Democrats are trying to do, is they're trying to pass a national abortion law that affects the states who don't want the abortions like that, you know, and forces them to do things that they don't want. So I guess if you want people to have the most choice possible, then you leave things how it is. Or am I wrong?
I think they also need to do something to protect the father's rights too, because all these fucking women just having abortions and the dads don't get a fucking say in it at all. It's bullshit, because the father would want the child where the mother wouldn't, but yet mom, since they cry out "my body, my choice," all that stupid bullshit. They just fuck over the dad.
That's where
I'm tired of that too.
Dad, you have to pick a good partner.
This is true.
Man,
all this is government mandated morality. If people would just be higher quality humans, these wouldn't be issues.
Well, and my whole point about this is, like, where in the Constitution does it spell out the federal government's power to do shit like this? Because I don't think it does. I think, in fact, specifically, all of the things in that document limit the power of the federal government. Or am I wrong?
You're right.
So why is this even a conversation? If anything, this should be a conversation that's held in churches, in debate halls or whatever, or within families around the dinner table. But this conversation, this issue, I don't think should belong on the national stage like this. Because again, it's dividing people. It's making every time that there's an election, this is brought up to stir up hate and anger and voting and blah, blah, blah. Right. And it doesn't really do anybody any good.
And lawfully said it best. It's just something to be used to not talk about a more important / pressing topic.
Also, I just want to point one thing out here is that JD and Tim Walz both made a great point that we don't need a Department of Education in this country anymore.
Oh, hell no.
Because it's so twisted by the government arm.
Because they both said leave it up state by state, et cetera, et cetera. That's the same exact thing with education. It should be exactly that same thing. Because even works in a major city.
Governor, would you like to respond and also answer the question about restrictions?
Yeah, well, the question got asked, and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your
That's
life
actually a flat-out lie, by the
and
way.
your
It's already
rights,
been debunked.
as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a
Not
very
your body
real
when it's a
chance.
baby in it.
You see the way that they talk about this, like the way that he's like, oh, the right to control your own body is on the ballot, and you're gonna die if you don't vote for us. That's what the fucking women hear who hear this shit, and that's why there's such a gender divide in this.
There's women that are experiencing that. Oh, I mean, you can deny it all you want, but
I'm sure it happens.
Well, no, that particular woman that Walz was referencing, it's a bullshit lie. It's already come out now that she was actually killed by doctors.
And I'm sure that it does happen where like the laws that are out there cause problems for people.
it's pretty simple.
Surprise,
You know, like
surprise.
abortions don't have them.
It's job, dude. Like that's always true, and that's always been my argument.
No one's
like,
forcing you to have an abortion.
again, dude. Like
But they're sure cramming a lot of fucking easy possibilities to have one.
So what? Don't have it. That's fucking simple.
Don't fucking force it on people.
How
Just don't stick your dick in crazy.
I think
right. I don't know how to tell you this. Fucking pulling out has worked for millennia.
All right, everybody shut the fuck up. Here's the problem. It's that the government and the powers that should not be, first of all, fund these operations and these entities and give them all the money to do what they want to do. But second of all, they propagandize people and they use it as a talking point and they like make it an issue and fucking blow it out of proportion for political reasons. And I think that's the real issue. That affects way more people than a couple of cases. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen to women where they're fucked over by the law, right? And like that's ultimately my point is fuck the fucking laws, dude. Like all of these things that are getting in people's ways of doing what they want to do. If someone wants to get an abortion, that's really what they want to do. Do you really want to stop them with the power of government? I mean, if so, okay, I guess, but I'm not with you on that one, man. I'm really not. I got to admit.
I think there's a certain point where even I consider it murder. Yeah, if it's, beyond, I think the cutoff should be about 25 weeks. After that, the baby is viable. I'm with most people, but if I catch it early, it's none of your fucking business.
Unless it's medically necessary to save the mother's life, like an ectopic pregnancy or something that's going to kill the mom, potentially, or abortion should never be on the fucking table. It's all
I just want to make this
murder.
point. I have a third cousin who literally survived at 22 weeks.
Sweet.
So Corey, you're arguing for the power of government to step in.
No, I'm not. I don't think the government should be in our lives so much like they are. But I also think, abortion's straight up fucking murder. And most abortions are convenience because they don't want to have the kid. So they go in and have it killed because they don't want to potentially alter their fucking lives or whatever.
Right. Here's the deal: they've normalized having two parents working, or they want this strong, independent woman to be career oriented. The thing is, and then you have daycares, things like that. I think it's more healthy for a child to have one person working and one person stay at home with them and develop them through their younger years.
Yeah.
And they've taken that away from the American people, and we don't realize it. Exactly, because they made it so. They made it so.
They fucked up the nuclear family.
Yeah, but both sides have made that so.
I'm not talking about sides. I'm talking about the government to the people. They have forced you into higher paid houses and rent, and they've made things so expensive that you both have to work now. They did this to you to ruin our kids, to ruin your families.
Mm-hmm.
So the easiest thing to do is to delete you because that's what they want anyway. So their depopulation goes full effect. We are all scrimping to fucking get by. You can't have a healthier family than what you would have just with one person at home.
There's also a lot of states that will specifically use Down syndrome and other symptoms like that to kill kids in the womb.
I'm going to keep playing this or we're never going to get through it.
If Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today. That's why the restoration of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice President Harris talk about this subject and you hear me talk about it, you hear us talking exactly the same. Donald Trump is trying to figure out how to get the political right of this. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not, and that's the problem.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, let me ask you about that. He mentioned, it was, I think, referring to a national ban. In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My question is, why have you changed your position?
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position nation. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making childcare more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
Governor, your response.
Well, I'm going to respond on the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're not.
Let me just say real quick, where in Trump's agenda is abortion on the menu? Did I miss that part?
No, he wants it to be state by state.
I want to point out something that the 2023 Ohio referendum, people were actually lied to like fucking crazy with the legislation language. And there's at least 500,000 people that said they would have voted the other way to actually say no. And had that been the case, it would not have passed at all.
So hold on though, I got to make a point here. This is very, very logical and fucking. If I don't get it, so Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have been in office for the last 3.5 years, right? Mm-hmm. And these decisions for the Supreme Court happened like 3 years ago, right? It wasn't recent. It's been in place for a while now, correct?
It was right before the election.
Okay, so it was before the election. Then they got elected, got into office. Presumably, if they wanted to, they could have at that point passed some law or something because they had control of the House or the Senate, right? They had control of the executive branch. Mm-hmm. They could have gotten something through. They could have cut a deal and made something happen, but they didn't do it. Right?
So they need another 4 years to do that?
So they kept all of the policies in place for the entire time that they had power. And now Trump is running for office, and his policy is, I'm going to keep the policies in place. I'm not going to do anything with it at all. Right? Am I right so far?
Yes.
And yet they're arguing that what? What are they arguing? I don't understand. That's the part I don't get. Yeah, apparently neither does anyone else, because
they're just scaremongering is what it means.
They're arguing just to fucking argue.
Well, no. Why is this an issue if everyone agrees? Because Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and the current administration had 3.5 years to fix this problem if it was a problem, and
they still do. Right at this
not a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's because just in this little chat, we have such a disagreement, and that means we're not talking about an important topic that we should be talking about. It's that simple.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. All right, onward.
We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the implications are to not be that. Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it, we're a top 3 state for the best place to raise children. But these two things to try and say that we're pro-children, but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are pro-freedoms for women to make their choices, and we're going, and Kamala Harris is making the case, to make options for children more affordable, a $6,000 child tax credit, but we're not going to base that on the backs of making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get health care.
Senator?
Any comments on that? I figure I'm just going to fucking break it up every time that way.
No, onward.
Yeah, keep going.
Respond to that. First of all, Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was. And maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor.
Any comments there? Jesus. I was fucking fiery. I kind of want to hear what he has to say, because he was like.
So I just looked it up to confirm. The Amber Thurman woman was actually killed because she took abortion medication, and it was medical negligence that killed her, because doctors refused to intervene when she was actually having the kid not be aborted properly or whatever, then from the medical pills.
Bullshit, Ohio.
All right, I'm moving on.
Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I feel like the bill that he voted for does exactly what J.D. Vance is saying it does. Because of the way that he dodged that question.
Yep.
The way that that bill is written seems like it would make it so that a late-term abortion performed by a doctor that was unsuccessful, that they would make it so that the doctor can just let the baby die on the table. That's what it sounds like.
There's a live born baby.
Well, that's because that is exactly what the bill allowed.
I don't know if I agree with that one, man.
There's a live born baby on the table. Their oath that they take as doctors is to do no harm. They should have to do everything possible to keep that baby alive now. That's what the abortionists always say. It's not alive until it leaves the womb. Well, there's a live baby on the table.
And they're letting it die.
That's just
murder.
Tim also failed to mention how he signed, as governor of Minnesota, a bunch of legislation into place to allow transgender surgeries on kids and also grab guns.
All right, gay shit, faggoty, fag. Let's keep going.
Hold on. Let me just say something real quick, since I just
sorry.
I would just like to.
I thought that was funny. Sorry.
Everybody, all the fags out there, gay retarded fags, whatever. Just use this for whatever your own fucking personal. I'm not making a point here. All right. But the earliest born viable pregnancy was 16 weeks. Viability has now been medically moved back to 22 weeks, and they anticipate that to be moved back even earlier as technology moves on. 95.2% of abortions are for convenience.
Yep.
Okay. 3% of abortions are due to rape or incest. 1.8 are medically needed. The death rate during an abortion for a pregnant mother is 0.45%. The death rate for a mother giving birth, not the abortion, is 0.03%. So you're actually increasing the chance that the mother dies. This is, by the way, according to left-wing Pew research polls. Okay? This is not some right-wing bullshit fucking numbers. Okay? The mother has a higher chance of dying during an abortion than during giving birth.
Every second that this debate about abortion goes on longer, the more I hate it.
I'm just saying, I'm just throwing some facts out there. Those are some statistical facts. Do with that what you will.
And again, I agree with Tactical Muffin Top's assessment of the fact that we're having this argument is obfuscating the actual problems going on because we're arguing about a fucking fucked up problem instead.
Yes.
2 points for Muffin. 2 muffins.
I simply disagree, because if we're going to have that view, then we must also have the view that it really shouldn't matter if we commit murder. And murder should not be something we judge other people based on. It is murder, whether you agree with it or not. It's just a form of murder that half the country says, well, people can decide that for themselves. That's all.
Murder
That's all
is only murder that doesn't end your ass up in prison.
So if we're going to decriminalize murder, then fine. Then we can have that discussion. But the reason it matters is because we are saying that intentionally killing some life is okay, while intentionally killing other life is not okay. And it's politicians who are making that fucking decision of when it is or isn't okay.
That's a gross oversimplification.
It is. It is an oversimplification because there's a lot more complicated issues.
It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on, and we're going to be right back with much more of the CBS News vice presidential debate in just a moment.
Oh, that's great.
Well, right into a commercial break. God damn it.
Now we can skip it. Yay. Skip.
And furthermore,
oh, shut up, faggot.
Who's racking their cig?
That was
Just don't stick your dick in crazy is the answer to the argument.
No, well, that's the problem, because sometimes you don't know if they're crazy until after the fact.
Back to the CBS News vice presidential
Well, usually,
debate.
if I know they're crazy, that's when I stick my dick in.
It's like saying, hey, men, don't be men.
The leading cause
Okay.
of death for children and teens in America
What the hell are we talking about
is
here?
by firearms. Senator Vance, you
Talk about
oppose
dicks.
most gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. So let me ask you, earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Nora, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just, how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartel. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
The simplest solution to this is repeal the Gun-Free Schools Act of 1990 that Biden himself was the architect behind.
Exactly.
They're just a fucking target.
Didn't know they were the act.
The hand of Cain killed Abel. A rock in the hand of David killed Goliath. It's not the rock. It's the hand.
Hashtag Goliath Lives Matter.
And if you limit the laws, as we all know, on law-abiding citizens, you do nothing to the non-law-abiding criminals who are going to do what they want. That, like, by definition, the laws don't apply to them. So, therefore, making new laws that restrict gun owners from being able to do things is only going to hurt law-abiding gun owners who aren't going to do anything. And I don't think anyone's fucking arguing that, like, okay, I've got like 2 teenage sons, right? Like, let's say one of my sons was unhinged and took one of my guns and went and shot up the school, and I let him do it because I didn't lock up my guns. I probably would expect to get in trouble for that. And you guys would probably be like, damn, Honda, you should have fucking done something about that. No wonder you're in trouble, right? No one's talking about that, and that's already the fucking law. So what are we even talking about again? Oh, let's hear what they have to say. Anyone else have a comment?
I do have one more comment, actually. Going back to the Crumbly parents there in Michigan that got that case put against them for 10 years in prison now, they would have actually got charged under felony murder rule in Michigan had Michigan not done away with that crime back in the 1980s.
Fucking Michigan. God damn it. Go to Canada, you fucking Michiganders.
Fucking Duke.
Get out of here.
Fucking Duke.
Gon' get.
We don't take kindly to your Michigander kind round here.
Hey, there you support them towel heads.
Go to the up. Get the fuck up out of here. How about that? Fucking faggots.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress,
he was playing volleyball?
In my office, surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents. And they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead. And they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is.
Of course
we understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced background checks, and we can start to get data. But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence. And this idea that we should just live with it, and I here's what I do think, that this is.
Real quick on that point, why don't they do research on gun violence? Anyone know? Anyone know the answer to this?
Because they'd have to include gang violence.
Well, no.
I mean, they already did the research.
You fucking just shut up. You don't know. You're not old enough. So shut your fucking mouth. Anyone else? Anyone old enough to remember?
Honda's a dick.
Ray.
Well,
Wait, who?
NRA.
What? I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, you're old. Why don't you turn up your fucking hearing aids?
Walk away. I'm doing something else.
Why did the government make it basically illegal to do research into firearms, like research stuff?
Because they want to prove that their narrative is bullshit.
Government? Yeah, where they said you can't. Yeah, they made it to where the government can't do research into this stuff.
But why?
Well, because the fucking numbers didn't go along with their agenda.
That's right, because they had an agenda, and the numbers kept showing that their fucking agenda was the exact opposite of what reality was doing. And so they were like, well, we got to just stop having these numbers out there, so let's make it illegal. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, onward.
This is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that work. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any.
Do they have a lot of inner city gang violence from minorities in Finland?
No.
Well, that would
I
make
don't
a
think they have a
difference.
lot of
wouldn't it?
minorities.
I mean, don't say that, Honda. You be labeled racist.
Well, I mean, when
Finland is a very homogenous society, we are not. And as much as, people want to say, oh, well, if you point that out, you're racist. No, that's not the point. The point is we are a melting pot for good or bad. That's what we are. You cannot compare us to fucking Finland, who is a homogenous, goddamn near male white fucking society that is fucking tiny compared to us, that doesn't have the fucking urban environment we have all across this fucking country, doesn't have the fucking the initial crimes that lead to what is it? I want to. It's. I think in our country, it's gang violence and things like that is what 80-something%. I believe 86% or something like that. I don't remember the exact statistic, but 80-something% of all firearm related murders. But see, they don't have gang violence like we do. That is the root cause of the vast majority of our murders. So that wipes that out right off the bat. So you just fucking that's just a whole section of crime that leads to murder by gun that they don't even fucking have.
Yeah, fuck Finland.
I mean, you can even break it down on a layman's term because remember, it's a homogenous society. Like, take it the same thing like you think of Japan. They all move one way. They all think the same way. If you become that outlier, you get stomped on. Where here we live in an area like America where you got 5 or 20 different ways of people how they live their life and do whatever and all they want. And that could be a pro and a con about that, but that's still going to be the results of certain problems that we face here.
I mean, whether you judge it region to region, state to state, or even goddamn city to city, there are vastly different cultures and ways people live their lives in this country compared to the one homogenous way they live in fucking Finland all across the entire country. It's completely different.
Well, you also see them continue to push that lie because they use the gun violence archive that just basically says shooting near a school, whatever the case be. But it's like 2-3 in the morning, and it's a gang banging shooting at that point.
All right, faggotry. 13% responsible for 51% of the murder. Onward.
Any sense? Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there.
Yeah, you are.
Do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go when we know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills? They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
By the way, completely not true. That shit is happening in Israel. That shit is happening in France, in Germany, in England, in Scotland, in Ireland, in Sweden, in Russia. They do drills just like that. The only difference is they do drills specifically to fucking plan for Islamic attacks and mass shootings in schools. Those fucking kids do the exact same fucking thing our kids do. In fact, I was watching a goddamn documentary like 3 weeks ago where their fucking drills are way more fucking crazy than ours are. They have fucking built-in sirens and fucking lights in the fucking schools, and they do drills once a fucking week, and they train like they're little fucking soldiers on exactly what to do in these situations. They go way fucking harder than we do all throughout the rest of the fucking Western world. Period. End of story. So that's bullshit lie.
Is anyone else holding their emotional support AK right now? Onward.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that you're doing okay. Christ have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said, actually, about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland. Is okay, first of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys,
just say it,
and take gun offenders off the streets.
Leo.
I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here, but
Black
I do think
people.
at our schools we've got to talk about
look, it's fucking gang violence is what it is. It's 80-something% of all fucking shootings, all murders. Period. Just fucking say it, dude.
I like it. Leo's just like, come on now.
But not black people, N-words.
I mean, bringing back the term ninjas.
There's a difference.
Yeah, ninjas.
or in my own house or in my dreams or anything. Like there's nowhere I can, but you could say it right now if you wanted to. You have.
You can say it in your dreams.
Yeah, we give you that black card.
I feel like you just admitted you say it in your dreams when you said that.
Yeah, Leo's my, that word.
The word anybody can say it.
Which means that you dream about saying it.
Yeah. I'm obviously a Nazi. Pay attention.
Obviously. Everyone.
To be honest, be honest, we all know it's the Jews' fault, really.
Thank you, Leo, for putting it out so plainly.
Yep, them fucking Jews out there having raves in the middle of a field.
Right.
If you grew up in the 90s and you liked rap at all, you've said it.
It's just a word. Anybody can say it right now. It's not a...
Go ahead, Ginger.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he said it before closed doors.
I said it on air, too.
What did they used to call...
I sent Leo a black muffin.
What did they used to call underwear back in the day?
Oh, I know you're talking about.
What? I don't know. Oh, okay. Yeah.
It took a minute.
Knickers.
Blasphemy.
Well, I wonder if the debate hosts are going to bring up the knickers and the Jews.
Why would they bring up underwear?
Let's find out.
Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those San Diego parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was the NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where...
Wait, did he just say he became friends with school shooters?
So I could pheasant hunt after...
That's what I heard.
I think that's what he said today. And several things I want to mention on this is, talking about cities and where it's at, the number one, where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. Yeah. And so we have, and we should look at all of the issues. Making sure folks have health care and all that, but I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing mental health, just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up doing is we start looking for a scapegoat. Sometimes it just is the guns. It's just the guns, and there are things that you can do about it.
The people,
but I do think that this is one, and I think this is a healthy conversation. I think there's a capacity to find solutions on this that work, protect Second Amendment, protect our children. That's our...
This guy's a massive deflector.
It's not just the fucking guns. Shut the fuck up. And then you're talking about rural areas and people committing suicide. Yeah, there's an epidemic of middle-aged white men in the United States killing themselves. It is at the highest rate that it's ever been. It's at a higher rate than pretty much any other group, except for like post-transition fucking Transformers. You know what I mean?
It's also more than doubled with black children in the last couple of years.
Also terrible. And that also all points back to mental health. Like there's something going on in this country where people's needs are not getting met. People's emotional health is being abused and neglected and traumatized and left to its own devices, which in many cases end up with a dude in a pickup truck in the middle of a field with a shotgun. And then they like use it as a political talking point. That kind of pisses me off.
The problem is
that also adds up.
This has been going on for 40 years. Both sides have done nothing to do anything.
Correct. I'll give you that one, Infernus.
It's getting worse and worse and worse. And especially like if you look at veterans, like the veteran suicide rate is appalling. And it's
22 day.
Middle-aged white men, number one demographic of people.
Mass shootings are way up in the last couple of years too.
We already know what the answer is. It's technology. You used to be able to go home back in your guys' day. I wouldn't know because cell phones fucking invented and shit when I was in high school. You could go home and forget about what the fuck happened at school, some dude picking on you or whatever. When you go home, everybody gets on fucking social media and blows you up all fucking night long, and that's all you fucking hear till 2 o'clock in the morning. Then you get up and fucking do it again.
Well, this adds to what I'm about to say. I mean, technically that counts as a dopamine rush. I mean, we always had a big drug problem, whether people are having lack of drugs or even having too much drugs or a whole bunch of mixed in between. We always had problems with a lot of people that are addicts, and it also gets to the other side of things, like you're saying with the gang stuff. I mean, last I checked, you're making money off of drugs. You ain't really making money off a lot of other shit.
Okay, and like, let's say that you are suicidal, right? And you're like, oh, thank God Kamala Harris and Tim Walz got into office because they banned all of these guns. Oh, wait, a revolver still works. Oh, wait, a shotgun still works for what I want to do with it. Oh, wait, a single shot 22 would still work for what I want to do with it because, honestly, it only takes one bullet, right? Like, that's all you really need. So all your magazine bans and your capacity bans and your bullshit bans that you fucking do ain't doing a fucking thing about that. Just fucking admit it. Sorry.
You could easily just go slit your fucking wrist or your throat or something.
Or take pills. Go back to the drugs thing.
In Minecraft.
I mean, I'm tired of them demonizing the guns just on that aspect alone.
Again, dude, if you use a gun to kill yourself, it's not the gun's fault. It's the fact that, like, your life was shit and no one cared and you didn't fucking make the right decisions and a whole million things went wrong to lead to that point.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But their major fuel isn't suicides. It's the next kid going and killing 30 classmates.
Which how big those numbers are.
He literally just brought that up as a talking point.
Right, but that's not their main. He's just talking about it's part of the issue too, because it is most of the deaths. Right, mass killings kill about 100 people a year. Suicide.
Start off with the lie
suicide is about 60%. Homicides is a little over 30.
Didn't he start off with the debunked lie that the number one cause of death for children in the United States is fucking gun violence?
It is for black kids.
It's cancer. It's not fucking guns.
Not for black kids.
I thought their whole entire.
I thought it was actually accidents under 10, like car accidents, swimming, things like that.
Well, the only reason they got this whole bullshit to begin with is because they had 18 and 19-year-old adults as children in those fucking statistics for that article they started out with.
There's that. But I also thought fentanyl and fucking like medical accidents and like certain like car accidents kill more than firearms.
Yeah, I think that was the false statistic he opened with.
Yep.
Yeah, but not by a lot, and there's, you know.
Well, yeah, but they're not having a national debate about fucking seatbelts right now. You know what I mean? And there's no Second Amendment about your fucking tires.
Actually, in 2022, more people died from firearms than motor car crashes.
Bullshit.
I have it right here from John Hawkins.
Yeah. Oh my god. Are you just writing your own? You just tightening your own news? You're like super anti anything that touches your guns, and here you are putting all the fucking debates up against guns.
I'm not gonna lie.
I don't even care, dude. Like it doesn't even matter because there's not a Second Amendment. Fuck off. There's not even a Second Amendment about.
Wait, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about death by firearm, or are we talking murder? Because those are two very different things.
He's saying death by firearms.
So that includes suicides.
And accidental deaths and justified shootings.
Yeah. So that's because car accidents have never ever been more than car accidents have always been more than murder by gun. But death by firearm, that could fluctuate. I mean, death by firearm on average, again, like you were saying, most of it usually to the tune of close to 20,000 deaths per year are suicide related. Car deaths usually typically hang around the 40,000 deaths per year mark on average. And so depending on how many suicides and accidental deaths, if you add the 20, if you add that, our average for the last 10 years has been anywhere from 9,000 to 13,000 murders per year by firearm. Depending on how high up accidental deaths and suicides go up, I can see that getting close. And if there was a year where the suicides and everything went up and car deaths went down, there could be some crossover there. But you're including all people that died by a gun, period, including the largest portion, which is suicides. But almost never has that happened. I mean, you may be right. What did you say, 2022 or something like that?
Yeah, and it's sorry I didn't see the youth. This was youth. More from 1 to 17, more people die from guns than car crashes. Not by a lot, it's just a few hundred. But
yeah. I mean, I can see there being some crossover there. It's not the norm. But on average, I think for the last 40 years, the average death rate by car crash has been 40,000 people killed every year or more, which is almost 99.999% of the time been more than everybody that's died by a firearm in the country, whether it was suicide or not.
Was there anything strange going on in 2022 that had a lot less people on the road and a lot more people locked in their homes?
No.
Yep.
I was on the road every day.
Yeah, that probably the suicides were way higher because of that.
Yeah, that might be because of like post-COVID.
No, we've been averaging around 50,000 for a long time. Not all those are guns. It's half.
Well, as we all know, if you go horizontal, you want attention. If you go vertical, it means you mean business.
Priority.
Yeah, go diagonal.
Thank you, Margaret.
Half and half.
Thank you, Nora. Let's turn now to the top contributor to inflation, the high cost of housing and rent. There's a shortage of more than 4 million homes in the United States, and that contributes to the high housing prices. Governor Walz, the Harris campaign promises a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and a $10,000 tax credit. They also promise to build 3 million new homes. Where are you building these homes, and won't handing out that kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No, it's not handing out. First, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the vice president is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is you don't have to pay the down payment. Those are things that make it there. Now, look, you're going to pay it back and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates. We've seen a 12% increase in stock because we put some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school. All of those things in the long run end up saving our money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case.
I was about to blame immigrants for the only reason as to why we're $4 billion short on housing. I don't know. What were you guys about to say?
Same thing.
Exact same thing.
It's all the fucking illegals that they're just pushing people out of their homes, out of their apartments, out of the streets, whatever.
I'm going to take a different.
Giving the illegals everything.
They've also bred and taught kids, especially, I've seen it in my own family. We've always been hardworking people, and my cousin went to a 4-year college, and he came back gay and doesn't want to ever own a house and wants to rent forever and doesn't want to work or have a car payment or anything. He just wants to go on vacation all the time. They've taught people to be so fucking lazy that they can't buy a house and work on it themselves. They can't mow their own yard. They don't want to fucking do anything.
Exactly, yeah.
Or live in the tiny home.
They just want to indulge in their luxuries, and that's it. They don't give a fuck about anything else.
You know what? I'm tired of them putting chemicals into the colleges that make the students gay.
That's a real fucking thing.
What Tim failed to mention is how that $25,000 home loan for first-time buyers means your family, your parents, your siblings, etc., could never own a home before you, and so it directly goes to illegals in most cases.
I've never owned a home. It would be nice.
Wait, say that again.
I'm trying to be a home.
No, if your parents or like any of your siblings ever owned a house, you do not qualify for that $25,000 home loan.
Really?
Yeah, but everybody gets their first-time home buyer.
Okay, so I'm not.
You still get your regular first-time home buyer's loan.
Okay.
I'm not my parents or my siblings though. Why would I not get the loan?
Because it's supposed to be for illegals, pretty much is what it
You're
is.
white.
It's like the same thing with that $10,000 EV incentive that they did a while ago, and then they raised EV prices by like 10 grand.
Man, when is this privilege going to start paying off?
Yeah, where the fuck? I want my discount, please.
Like, seriously. I'm ready for some privilege. Thank you.
Yeah, I ain't got my reputation, man.
Honda, you just got to figure out what tribe you're a member of and get on the roll.
That doesn't
I don't
matter.
know. I never got any of that.
No tax that tribe.
All right, onward.
It's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing, but we can make sure that the government's there to help kickstart it, create that base.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, as far as your campaign's position, the promise is to seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices. Where are you going to build all the new homes you're promising, and what part of any of this plan will provide immediate relief? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but
I do.
You want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up cost him $25 million.
Yeah, I blame them too, but I also blame the immigrants. At least for the rents being so high.
I've had 6 offers on my home the last 3 weeks. Every one of them has been some fucking firm that just wants to turn everything into rentals.
Right, but
wait. Who's the largest home buyer in the country right now?
BlackRock.
China.
BlackRock. That's right. And do you want to know what party BlackRock gives 87% of their donated money to politics to?
Democrats.
The Republicans?
Isn't that suspicious?
Oh, not the Republicans.
All right, onward.
Illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country. It's why we have massive increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream of homeownership completely unaffordable. Now, you asked, Margaret, what would immediately change the equation for American citizens? If you lower energy prices, as Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill, one of the biggest drivers of housing costs aside from illegal immigration is, think about it. If a truck driver is paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build the house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens, not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods too.
Senator
Comments, boys?
I agree.
This whole fuel thing with the truck drivers is bullshit.
I blame the
over the past couple of years, the fuel prices have gone crazy, while the trucking rates have gone in the gutter. So this whole thing where the transportation is actually adding to the cost of the goods is complete bullshit.
I blame
the rates have been in the gutter for like 3 years now.
Because of the immigrants.
Yes.
Partially because of the immigrants.
I'm just going to say that.
Strike thing is also bullshit.
Sorry. Go on.
Now, if you talk to Fiend Dog.
By the way, can I go back to something we were talking about earlier real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Because someone sent me a message. In 2023 in Minnesota, there was a law on the books that had been on the books since 1976 that said that all doctors had to use, quote, responsible medical personnel to use all reasonable measures consistent with good medical practice to preserve the life and health of a born alive infant. And in 2023, May of 2023, Tim Walz removed that wording from that bill. He removed specifically that wording from that bill, so that way they didn't have to do that, and abortion doctors wouldn't get charged with a crime because it was illegal up until May of 2023 when he had that removed. Just throwing that out there. Somebody just sent me that message and sent me the links to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, if a man punches a woman in the stomach and her baby dies, he goes to prison. Why is it different if the woman or a doctor does it?
They have a drill.
So we don't need to get into this again, but if they make abortion illegal, there's always the staircase.
Yes.
Vance, you
no,
still
the
have
reason that it's
23
different is
seconds there. Do you want?
No, I was just going to say the reason that it's different is because depending on the situation, they use situations to determine whether or not a life is valuable, which is a bullshit standard. The situation should not determine whether life is valuable. It either is or it isn't, and we need to figure that out as a country. It either is or it isn't. Figure it out, pick a side, and then we'll all get on board with it.
And get naked.
Want to answer
Can I have it?
where, Governor, we will get to you in a moment, but Senator, where are you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used for national park. They're not being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up.
Pause it for a second.
I do want to.
So right after talking about abortions, I was like, we got a lot of federal lands. We could totally do abortions over there. That's what I was thinking the whole time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but once that land is not federal land anymore, who gets the land to develop it? It won't be the government building houses, will it?
China.
Are they going to put Section 8 housing on there? Yeah, like who gets the land? They're going to give it to giant corporations to build houses on,
problem, right?
and then sell.
The idea of like making land available for people to build homes is great until you realize that most of that land is going to get sold to giant corporations who have just as much of a likelihood to sell that to fucking BlackRock or China as they do some family here in the United States. And that's a problem. So if you're going to do that, which by the way, I agree with, because I've never agreed with the early American progressive movement to fucking say the government knows better how to take care of the land than you do, which is why we're going to fucking take, because they took a fuck ton of land from people, by the way, in the early 20th century. They took millions and millions of acres away from people who that land had been in their family for a long time. They just took the fucking land away because their idea was that, well, we know better how to do this than you do. I don't have a problem with giving that land back as long as you do it in a way that ensures that American people, individuals, families have a first crack at getting that land.
What if there's like a land rush, like back in the day, where they're like, if you just showed up and you were the first one there, and you could get like 5 acres of land and a mule or whatever?
Yeah,
I mean, I would like that, but man, that's a pipe dream if they can.
Well, they're never going to do it. Yeah, bro, I'm at the age, the kids are fucking old enough. Like, I'm out of here, man. We're going to Yellowstone.
Here's the problem with that is if it's land that has never been developed, it's going to cost roughly $500,000 to get your septic and your well tapped, if it's even a spot where you can tap a well and get electric and things like that. It is expensive because I was looking at doing it on a plot of land here that actually had a house on it, but all that shit was so old that you couldn't use it and I'd have to start from scratch.
It is there, but here's the thing, there are plenty of people who would fucking do it.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying it costs more than buying a house that's currently available.
What if it was like the government like fucking built some sort of basic infrastructure in an area and said, okay,
fuck that shit. Fuck the government. You can make more goddamn taxpayer money. Open the land up and say, come and get it. Here's how much every fucking acre costs. Come and get it. You're in charge of it. You're responsible for it. Enough people go out to a certain area. They get together. They can fucking incorporate and become a town and start putting together utilities and do their own fucking thing. Let people fucking be free. And part of that is they have to figure out how to make it work. And I guarantee you, there are millions of people who would fucking figure out how to make it work. And they would go out there and they would incorporate towns and they would get shit going and they would be fucking happy. They'd be fucking happy to fucking do it.
I'm waiting for somebody to make Bartertown.
The other thing that I'm envisioning is like,
isn't it Nevada that's like 80% federal land?
Yeah, hell yeah.
They want to give it
when I started talking, and I was like,
but
it's fine.
Some area I wouldn't be saying
It's fine. It's cool. Everyone just keep
Stop
going.
talking over Honda, goddammit.
Her butt hurt, Honda.
So I'm gonna talk over Honda real quick and just say
all right, Leo's out. Who else wants to talk? I'm just kidding. Hey, I was thinking this though. Wouldn't this be funny? The projects, like how they did the projects where it's like just these like cheap ass shitty government built apartments one on top of another where just like the worst crime in the world happens in the middle of Yellowstone Park because that's where Trump gave them land. That's all. Go on with your interrupting.
Fuck you, Honda. Let's interrupt him.
Yep. Oh, we should make that a reality show.
Dude, if they released a bunch of fucking land and there was, for all intents and purposes, a new fucking, manifest destiny fucking move across the country to these areas for people to start taking land and making it their own, guarantee you there would be a fucking reality show on Discovery Channel. Hey, there would.
Look at none of your business's comment.
No, fuck you. Shut up, Nunya.
Yeah, it'd be land.
I mean, there's gonna be some fucked up towns, man.
Right.
Yeah, but
All
fucking
right,
let it
responds to the allegation that the vice president is letting in.
Well, of course, that's not
migrants,
true. And again,
then
you
it's
have the
affecting
facts. I
housing
guess we
prices.
agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office. But it's again,
fucking shit.
And not trying to find the solution. I was going to ask though on this question: are we going to drill and build houses in
By the way,
same
pause
part of
it.
land?
The
And I think
fucking ICE Border Patrol Union have come out with the fucking numbers and said, because that's been claimed multiple fucking times in the last few months, that is blatantly a fucking lie by the Democrats. The fucking Border Patrol and ICE unions have come out and said, fuck no. Yes, the fucking crossings are up. They're way the fuck up. We have the actual fucking published numbers. So that is such a blatant fucking lie.
Yeah.
The trouble is, it's illegal crossings are down because they just legalized all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I have a buddy that's
how many people have come across?
What they're doing is
United
they're
States
saying
since the
anybody.
fucking administration started, wasn't it like fucking like 15 million or something like that?
Yes. Well, actually, it's closer to 20 that we know of. But what they're doing is they're saying, well, if you come here, you can get busted for crossing illegally. But once you get here, if you claim asylum, they basically try and remove that number. They try to say that number doesn't count. That's what he's fucking talking about. He's using the edited number after people claim asylum. Well, that has nothing to do with, did they come here illegally? Yes, they fucking did. Because the proper way to claim asylum is to go to a port of entry and declare asylum to ICE. That is how legally you declare asylum, that you declare refugee status or asylum or whatever the fuck it is.
Even then, dude, is that really asylum? Is that legally asylum?
Well,
just
according
because
to
you show up to
US
the port of
law
entry and say asylum, is it asylum?
Well, no. What's happening today is not claiming asylum. What you're supposed to do legally, according to U.S. law, is you go to an ICE port of entry and you turn yourself in and say, I would like to request asylum or refugee status, whatever you're requesting. Then you go into custody immediately. You are not released into the interior until you've actually seen a judge who fucking makes a determination on your refugee or asylum status. Okay, that is the way it is supposed to work. But none of these people are doing it. They are crossing the border illegally. Then if they get caught, then they claim asylum status. That is not legally the definition of asylum status. And what their fucking administration is doing is saying, well, all those people, they didn't cross the border illegally. Yes, the fuck they did.
Dude, I just had a fucking great idea. Bear with me. It's called Make Egypt White Again. Where we all leave fucking America and we go to, because they did DNA testing on the pharaohs. There was like a pharaoh mummy that they did testing on. You know what they found out about him?
He was black.
European DNA. That's right. The pharaohs were white. So we should go back and take over Egypt again and reclaim our heritage.
I just want to take back the mountains of Caucasus.
I got this.
They were
You would
Greek
love a mountain of
invaders.
cock, wouldn't you? I say we do late-term abortions on all the illegal migrants. Just saying.
Let's just all illegally immigrate into Egypt. We'll do to them what they're doing to us. We'll reverse Uno card this bitch and create our own republic. All right, onward.
When people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the countries we do. There's not a lot of federal lands in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota, we protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that. I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor, you're
Okay. Oh, because it's only an economist who can make an observation. You're right. You need to be an expert on something to have an opinion on it. I'm tired of that argument too, right? Like just because you don't have the fucking certification that says that you're the expert of the thing means that your view on it's worthless. And I agree, there are a lot of fucking worthless views out there. But if you've actually done enough research into a topic to speak intelligently about it, and you have an opinion, and people are like espousing opinions, then I think your opinion matters, right? And if you haven't done research and you don't know about something and you're just fucking talking to be heard because you're an 18-year-old who can vote now, I think you should be rightfully told to sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up, you little fucking fetus.
Yeah, Honda's my economist on 9/11. All right, keep going.
Hold on. There's three things about what this dude just says. A, well, we don't really have any national parks in Minnesota, but I care so deeply about fucking national parks. Shut the fuck up. B, we have 20% of the world's fucking fresh water in Minnesota. No, the fuck you don't. You border a couple of lakes that several states and fucking mostly Canada fucking border. You barely border it. And then fucking third, dude gets in there and clear difference here. He points out, well, you would like to fucking take this land and sell it off to where people can buy it, can build homes on it. I think we should just invest more government money in fucking refurbishing old homes. So there's a clear difference there. You want to give people an opportunity to pay for something that will be theirs, thus spending no government money. I want to spend a bunch of government money that we're basically just going to give to a bunch of fucking BlackRock contractors and spend a bunch of fucking money building houses that half of which will never fucking get sold because BlackRock's going to hold on to them, and the other half are going to get sold for exorbitant ass fucking prices. Meanwhile, the whole bill was footed by the fucking American taxpayer to pay BlackRock and their contractors to refurbish all these fucking houses. That's a clear difference you see between those two ideologies right there.
His uneven, beady eyes stare through my soul.
Time is up, but
look at his eyes; they're not even. I just noticed that.
Well, he's a reptilian.
on that point.
Like, look, this
He looks like a leprechaun.
He looks like
this
a
one's
toad.
lower and open bigger, and it's almost like his mother tried to do an Irish abortion, but it didn't work out. All right, onward.
Point I'd like for you to clarify. There are many contributing factors to high housing costs. What evidence do you have that migrants are part of this problem?
Well, there's a Federal Reserve study that will.
Real quick, supply and demand. Next question.
Here's the thing, though. Wait. Why are they asking him to clarify what his statement was? They didn't ask Tim Walz to clarify what's your proof about what you just fucking stated.
Oh, that's not the first time they've taken sides.
Well, I know,
like,
but that's the whole like they're only asking fucking Vance to fucking clarify and fucking show his work and shit like that. They're not asking Waltz to, he's making fucking outlandish goddamn statements with no basis in reality or fact, and they're not asking him for any fucking proof for anything he's fucking saying.
Yeah, they're being very careful about it, but they're absolutely showing bias in this debate.
Yeah, it's the same bullshit they did with Trump.
Yep, they did the same exact thing.
on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry.
Go on. Anyone have anything to say? All right. Tim Walz is right.
I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that in some cases, many of those are local. Many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen, we have a lot to get through. You're passionate about the housing crisis, I can tell. But Nora?
Thank you. One of the top problems facing Americans is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In response, he said, I have concepts of a plan. Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing how chronically ill Americans get health insurance. Can you explain how that would work? And can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, of course, we're going to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot of my family members have gotten health care. I believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concepts of a plan remark. I think it's very simple common sense. I think it's Tim Walz knows from 12 years in Congress, you're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. You think about healthcare, you go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice and will also drive down costs. And we talked about, the reinsurance regulations is what I was talking about. Look, Donald Trump has said that if we allow states to experiment a little bit on how to cover both the chronically ill, but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States. And I think you can make a really good argument that it salvaged Obamacare, which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along. And I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done. But when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and healthcare costs.
All right, I'm super bored now. What do you guys think?
It's fucking gay.
All right. Fucking gay. Move on. Next question, please.
Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care. It's not perfect, of course, and there's so much more that we can do, but I think that Donald Trump has earned the right to put in place some better health care policies. He's earned it because he did it successfully the first time.
Governor?
All right, here's where being an old guy gives you some history. I was there at the creation of the ACA.
The planet.
I was there.
Wasn't there? Which was it? Fuck, I can't remember who it was. Who's like cursed by God to not die and walk the earth, and they made fucking Dracula about him. It was the guy who turned in Jesus. Judas. He's Judas. That's who he is. He's been alive since Jesus.
And the reason it was so important is I come from a major healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3M, Medtronic, all of those. We understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare. And so what I know is under Kamala Harris, more people are covered than they have before. And those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order.
Fuck John McCain.
Yeah, because Obamacare wasn't working.
Whoa. Get him, Pat Rat.
You right there, Pat Rat?
Yeah, fuck John McCain.
Mm-hmm.
Republicans put the bill forward to repeal Obamacare like fucking 15 times when they weren't in power. As soon as they had all three branches of the government, fuck John McCain.
Yeah, John McCain held it up while he was dying of cancer. It was like his last act of fucking Congress was to keep Obamacare.
He's like, hey, check this out.
If you're wanting to make healthcare affordable to reach more Americans and shit, kick all these fucking welfare recipients off that don't need it and stop giving the shit to fucking all these motherfucking illegal aliens that don't deserve a goddamn thing because they're not American citizens. And therefore, American citizens can afford and have health insurance and be able to afford that, whereas we are not now.
I just take solace in the fact that I believe in hell for certain people, and that, like, a lot of these politicians that have passed on are currently being raped by burning hot pineapples by the devil. Makes me feel better.
Yeah, it's a nice image, definitely, for sure, because there are so many that need it.
He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now, fast forward, what that means to you is you lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look, this issue, and when Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan, it cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept, because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work.
No,
already do. Hell, qualifying for any of these fucking insurances, Obamacare or Medicaid, Medicare, is fucking astronomically impossible to get qualified for. Damn near have to be an invalid.
Did he say he's a fourth grade teacher?
I think he said when he was a fourth grade teacher.
Yeah. I don't want him teaching no fourth graders. He's a freak.
No, didn't he put tampons in fourth grade bathrooms?
I don't know, man, but like
he did in boys' bathrooms, yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, male teachers should be for like junior high, high school, college. Female teachers should be for like grade school through high school.
I don't know.
Like college professors, maybe if you're really smart and you're like a scientist woman. If you're a woman scientist, I'll listen to you.
Yeah, but I mean, Jordan Peterson completely disagrees with you.
I know, I'm being hyperbolic.
I
don't actually think that. I don't actually think that. To be honest, I'm just being funny.
God damn it!
I know it's hard to tell sometimes. Sorry, guys. My bad.
So I think one thing that Tim Walz admitted here is that we don't need career politicians ever in this country.
Although I do kind of look at dudes who hang out with kids who aren't their kids a little cross-eyed. I gotta admit, but that's only because like society has so many times shown us that, like dudes who put themselves in positions of power around kids aren't necessarily doing it for bad reasons, but they could be.
Unfortunately, a lot of women teachers fuck kids too, though.
Yeah, and that's also true.
A lot more.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, onward.
Kamala Harris will protect and enhance the ACA.
Governor, thank you. Senator, you have not yet explained how you would protect people with pre-existing conditions or laid out that plan.
Well, look, we currently have laws and regulations in place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We want to keep those regulations in place, but we also want to make the health insurance marketplace function a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said is actually not true. A lot of what happened and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president. Inflation was low. Take-home pay was higher, and he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership. He did his job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Honestly, it was the pre-existing conditions thing that made it so that Obamacare didn't work, right? Because like it made it so like a guy like me can be like, oh yeah, I'm healthy, I'm fine, I don't need to go to the doctor, so I'm not going to go to the doctor, and I'm not going to pay for insurance. And then, 5 years down the line, something happens, I break my leg, I go get health insurance, pre-existing condition being my broken leg, pay a little extra because it's more because I have a pre-existing condition, go to the doctor, get a cast put on my leg, immediately cancel my insurance, and then go on with life. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it enabled people to do. Like, I won't get insurance until I get cancer. And once I get cancer, then I'll get insurance. Makes perfect sense. Because they can't deny you for having cancer. What it should have been was, all right, everybody sign up for health insurance. If you have a pre-existing condition as of right now, we will not stop you from getting insurance right now. But if you do not continue to hold insurance, you drop off, and then you try to reapply for insurance with a pre-existing condition, then that's going to be a problem. Like that would make people, so they're like, well, fuck, I better get on with this program, and I better make sure that I make my payment every month and stay current with whatever, because if I get dropped off and then I find out that I'm sick, then I might not be available to get insurance, and that would make insurance cheaper for everyone because it would make the healthy people pay in for the sick people, and that's the way that insurance is supposed to work. But since they made pre-existing conditions a thing, that's not the way insurance works anymore.
That's if any even qualify for insurances.
I'll just say this. Before Obamacare existed, I had a state level thing, and when Obamacare kicked in, they kicked me off my state thing, and it almost killed me because I had to take medication at the time that I was not qualified for after that.
I don't even qualify for like Obamacare or anything because I don't make enough according to them. And the other stuff, I just can't qualify for either.
Oh, under the ACA, if you cancel and then rejoin, they bill you for the time that you didn't pay. Well, that's fun. I didn't know that. Well, that's why fucking Obamacare didn't work, though. Like, ACA is different, apparently. I guess I don't know about the ACA, but yeah. Anyway, onward. The ACA is gay.
Governor, did enrollment under the Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system works. And the question about this, young people,
oh my God,
I'm retarded. Mandate piece of this. And Republicans fought tooth and nail saying, well, Americans should be free to do this. Well, then what happens?
You think the individual mandate's a good idea?
I think the idea of making sure the risk pool is broad enough to cover everyone, that's the only way insurance works. When it doesn't, it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA where we get people out. Look, people know that they need to be on health care. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying healthcare once you get past 70. So look, the ACA works. We can continue to do better. Kamala Harris did that. The way she made everything better was negotiating those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
Thank you. Margaret?
Anything? All right, I'm going on.
10 drugs is nothing. I'll just say that.
I'm going to dip out, man. These guys are so fucking boring.
Yeah, this is the gayest thing since AIDS.
Yeah,
Onward.
I apologize. We're out of time. We have a number of subjects to discuss. Margaret?
Let's talk about families in America. There is a child care crisis in this country, and the United States is one of the very few developed countries in the world without a national paid leave program for new parents. Governor Walz, you've said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2 minutes.
I will answer this real quick. I have 2 kids. Both kids, when they were born, I took 2 days off. I got no pay, and I immediately went back to work, working my ass off to pay for my 2 kids to make sure that they were good. Their mother got to stay home for a couple of months for each kid, like a year for one of them, while I worked and supported her and the kids and did everything for everybody. And like, honestly, that's the way it should be. Like, I don't think fathers should get a bunch of time off to go, like, be you know what I mean? Like, a newborn baby needs its mother. And the mother needs the father to go out there and make some fucking bread, bro.
I agree.
I had 12 weeks of paid leave.
Well, you worked for Google, which was nice, I bet. I bet that was fucking sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my wife really
I'm not
appreciated
saying
it.
I wouldn't have appreciated it, but having government mandated requirement of that and having the like business have to pay for that. So like, okay,
I think the reasonings are because a lot of these companies are, have record-breaking profits.
Well, okay, let's say I'm a small construction company, right? And I'm looking at hiring a new manual laborer. Manual laborer A has no wife, has no kids. Manual laborer B has a pregnant wife with a kid on the way. Who do you think I'm hiring? Yeah, that's right. The guy who doesn't have a kid on the way, because I know that I'm not going to have to pay him for fucking 3 months of not working. That's just simple math, dude. And yeah, there's some companies that make a fucking fuck ton of money, and that probably should apply to companies like that, but they should probably apply it to themselves because they make so much money. You know what I mean? Like, you as an employee working for a big company, that's kind of one of the trade-offs that you have is like, oh, there should be more benefits of working for a big versus a small company might have like better understanding or something. I don't know what the benefit would be, like in at the base level or something, Anyway.
Or my tax money could actually pay to help people.
Yeah, I mean, would you guys prefer to have like a Canadian version of healthcare where like you just like go to the doctor and if you don't have health insurance, like they take care of you eventually,
Instead of fucking paying for wars and the drug war and
right.
other dumb shit.
For sure. I would rather have that myself. Because at least then you could get like it sucks, but like, like your broken leg will be fixed eventually,
Look, we talked about this many times. We have the worst of both worlds right now.
Oh, I know.
We have a highly, highly government-interfered, regulated, private healthcare industry in this country, which is just a fucking clusterfuck, okay? They need to pick a side because either side would be better than what we have now. Either full-blown, market-driven, government stays out of it, or fucking Canadian-style healthcare. Either one would be better than what we have now.
That's hodgepodge shit, right?
We have a cluster-fucked situation. I work in this industry. It's a fucking shit show, okay? Because it was a market-driven fucking system that government stuck their fucking hands in and didn't just, okay, we're just going to take it. Either fucking take it or leave it alone because you have created the worst system imaginable.
Yeah, take that.
Why is it people that pay out of pocket pay, triple, quadruple times what people with insurance have? Because cash payments, you're getting paid right on the spot. Dealing with insurance, it can be a nightmare at times, especially when you're dealing with Medicaid, Medicare.
Dude, we got fucking people that, like, healthcare tourism is a fucking thing now for Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Where people are literally paying, $700 for a round trip ticket to fucking Dubai to go and get 3 days worth of tests and fucking treatments and all this shit done for about 1/10 of the cost of what it would cost here and then flying back. because it's saving tens of thousands of dollars. You can go to Dubai right now and get 3 days worth of all these tests, like things that if you were to go to your insurance company right now, first of all, unless you've paid off your deductible and you're out of pocket, your insurance company's not paying for it. You're going to probably pay $60,000, and you can go to Dubai right now and get the same treatment for about $2,000 in motherfucking Dubai.
Dude, I saw some shit. It wasn't Dubai or Mexico. It was fucking Turkey. And it was like a state-of-the-art hospital, spa, hotel, 5-star restaurant, all rolled into one, where you go there for like 3 days, like you're saying, and they do CAT scans, MRIs, blood tests, urine tests, all the tests on tests. And then they give you all of the results and feed you fucking gourmet food and
but then afterwards
the whole time, and it was like $800 for the whole fucking thing, dude.
But afterwards, you're beeping, you got weird red lights in your belly, and then like a fucking cell phone goes off and you explode.
I mean, shit, at this point, I'll take my chances. At least that way I'll know if I'm going to fucking, if I got cancer or something.
Yeah, well, the reason that's even a thing is because of the shitty system we deal with.
Right.
Because it is Americans that are that are fucking patronizing this industry that has popped up. It's not the rest of the world. It ain't fucking China. It ain't fucking Russia. Might be a few people from Europe. It's mostly people from the United States that have made healthcare tourism an industry where countries are starting to do that.
Well, if I could afford it, I would.
All right. Looks like a round trip flight to Turkey is $967. Just kidding, guys. I'm not actually.
Like, check this out. My old lady goes to a specialist doctor for like medication refill. With insurance, it's like $30-$40 a visit. I go to the same doctor for the same thing, and it's $300.
I really wish I'd known about this. Remember, like 2 years ago, or whatever that was, where I had that health scare and all that shit. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably spent around $2,000, give or take, on the doctor and paying for insurance and getting fucking tests done and blah 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 blah. It was right around $2,000.
Is that when you promised God you were going to stop smoking weed?
I had the conversation.
Hey, don't blame it on the weed.
Hey man, then I talked to him about
I'm just fucking with you. I'm just fucking with you.
I talked to him again, and we he understands. Anyway, forgive me. I fucking hate
Weeds
you.
from the earth.
Anyway, I guess I shouldn't have brought it up, but I could have gone all the way to fucking Turkey and gotten like a 3-day spa venture with steaks and fucking massages and probably Turkish blowjobs.
Probably.
For the
like
same
I said, you
price.
can do that in Mexico.
And had like more immediate peace of mind and been like right back to work.
Yeah. They don't make you wait weeks for fucking test results and shit. You get them like that day. Like, boom, here you go.
Yeah, because like the lab is where you take the test. Right?
Yeah.
Which one is the best one to go to? Like Turkey or Dubai or wherever?
I mean, the place I saw was in Turkey. They're probably a better place. I don't fucking know. You know what I mean?
Who knows?
Anyway,
onward. Well, I'm near the border, so I'll say Mexico.
Yeah, well, that's negotiable, and that's what Congress worked. But here's what the deal is. Americans sitting out there right now, you may work for a big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in California. Those companies provide paid family medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy. We in Minnesota passed a paid family medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start. The family works better. We stay in their employers. We get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue. Those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some cases, that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that. This is the case of an economy that Donald Trump has set for the wealthiest amongst us. He's willing to give those tax breaks to the wealthiest. He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever. What we're saying is the economy works best when it works for all of us. And so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take care of our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that.
It's funny how he knows all about the rules of supply and demand when it comes to child care, but when it comes to housing, it's like the fucking concept never existed. All right, stupid faggots.
We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family and medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families. And
I did quit smoking weed, by the way.
I know you did for a really long time.
And I vape it now. I don't smoke it.
Okay. I'm just
edibles, baby.
Shit.
So
I don't give a
technically we're still doing God's work over here.
All right, good.
You don't like edibles, Honda?
No, I don't like edibles. They hit me fucking weird. Yeah. But I do like vaping out of my volcano. It's a very clean way to ingest THC.
I tried the volcano once.
Takes out 99% of the carcinogens. So basically you'd have to smoke 100 bowls out of it to smoke 1 bowl worth of tar in your lungs.
It looks like an airbag or something.
My throat feels better and my lungs feel better, and everything feels better. So we're good. Anyway, go fuck yourself. Never enough ammo.
And make it easier to have the children that you
I'm just kidding. I love you.
want.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, do you support a national paid leave program? And if so, for how long should employers be mandated to pay their employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who is an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator. And I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company, but the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of childcare model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with childcare. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide childcare in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies. We want to promote choice in how we deliver family care and how we promote childcare because look, it is unacceptable. And, of course, Sam and I have been on the campaign trail a lot the past 7 or 8 weeks.
Dude, this is getting really boring and gay.
Dude, they're not even fighting enough.
Yeah, this is.
It's like
I didn't expect them to.
Like, I almost want to just skip ahead a couple of questions and just see what they talk about. Oops.
My son and his dog.
Oops, I just skipped like 10 minutes. My bad.
That issue and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over.
Oh, did Mike Pence make the right decision there? There is a good fucking topic. Fuck
what? By certifying the election?
Yes.
Yes, he did exactly what he had to do. Regardless of look, I think the election was stolen
to not get killed.
But I think the election was stolen. However, that bullshit unconstitutional argument that fucking Donald Trump's lawyer tried to make that somehow the fucking vice president doesn't have to, that he has some choice that he can hold up an entire election and fucking not certain. It's bullshit. It's constitutionally unsound. Many constitutional lawyers, right-wing constitutional lawyers, like, that's bullshit. The vice president does not have the right to redo an entire fucking election. His job is to go in there and certify it. That's his only job, and that's the only thing he can do.
What is okay? So if you certify that a house is past its inspections, right?
It is not within his duties to judge the inspection. His duty is simply to certify. Once it is Congress's job to fucking determine if an election has been secured, and possibly the job of the Supreme Court. Once that is done, which was done, by the way, even though it's all bullshit and we know it, the only thing he could do is certify it. That is his only duty. That is all he can fucking do. So while I don't like Mike Pence,
well, hold on. Let's
did.
think about this logically for a second, right? It's in the Constitution that he has to certify the election, correct?
Yes.
So he has to sign a piece of
Yeah.
paper that says I certify blah 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 blah. Presumably, that would be because why? Because there would be a situation that the founders foresaw in which the vice president in that position would look at the things that happened up to that point and say, I cannot certify this election. Would that be why? I'm just asking. I don't know. It makes sense.
He 100% had the power not to certify the election. That's why they passed a law after the fact, taking it away from the vice president.
Is that true? That's something I didn't know. Did they pass a law that made it that's no longer true and no longer part of the statute?
Yes.
Okay, so then he did have the power to not certify.
No.
It would take me a while to research what they did, but they passed the law after the fact.
It is not in the Constitution that the vice president has to certify the election. The Senate
then why does he have to certify the
Congress
election?
made laws a long time ago that he's the one that the vice president's the one that does it, because they are the leader of the Senate. Essentially, the vice president is. Okay, they are the 51st vote in the Senate, which is why he does it. Okay, what he does is fucking basically what Congress and Senate have told him to fucking do. He has no constitutional power. There's nothing in the fucking Constitution that says the vice president can or cannot certify an election. It is something that the Senate and the House decided they wanted the vice president to do. They're the ones that wrote the laws for him to do it. He has no constitutional power to have anything to do with the election. No vice president does or ever has. It is ceremonial.
All right, dude, I believe you. I believe you. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense. That's all. It doesn't make sense to give someone the ability to certify an election if there wasn't also the converse idea that he could not certify it.
It's ceremonial. That's all it is.
Again, fine. I believe you. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense.
Again, we all agree the fucking election was stolen and there was so much interference and all kinds. I'm not debating that at all. But Mike Pence couldn't have fucking done anything. If Mike Pence had decided not to certify the election, it still would have gotten certified by fucking Congress and the Senate.
Fuck that silver G.I. Joe looking motherfucker.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. I don't like Mike Pence at all. But there's literally nothing he could have done. There's nothing he could have done that would have changed anything.
Maybe he could have gone to gay conversion camp. Remember that? Wasn't he part of that? Something?
Yeah, he was. He didn't he pass some laws in Indiana about that shit that made it legal for you to send your kids to fucking gay conversion therapy and shit like that.
Probably
do that shit. I think so. Mike Pence is a fucking piece of shit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not picking him at all, but like the idea that Mike Pence is the reason why Trump fucking lost the election is such bullshit.
Was it ever determined what that coin thing was that was handed to Pence by somebody?
Fuck are you talking about?
I have no idea.
The day of the election, there was like a coin or something that was handed to Pence.
Probably a challenge coin.
Who it was?
Maybe.
Yeah, it was some kind of like weird coin or something he was handed, or like some kind of like, I don't know, like it looked like a gold piece of something or other.
Fucking faggotry. I'm not sure. Onward.
Over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents are
wait, like they're trying to do to Trump right now. Sorry, go on.
Already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter. A president's words matter.
Like all of the words from the president and vice president that keep getting fucking assassins attempting to take President Trump's life. Like those words that matter. Sorry, go on.
People hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power.
Shut the fuck
and
up,
here
you
we are
lying
4
cunt.
years later.
Like you have to get like very, 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 very specific with that sentence for it to be true. The first time a president has ever been under fire in the wait, that's not true. But they tried to overthrow the that's not true. But they tried to overthrow the government during that's not true. During an election, they tried to specifically this is the one specific instance of this, and it's the worst thing ever, and no one can deny it because it's never happened before in this country. And talking point done. Like that's what they do.
Make tar and feathering great again.
I mean, no one talks about the time. Like, remember when Trump was forced into the bunker inside of the White House because of the BLM riots outside in Washington, D.C. that were so bad? And then the media at the time made fun of Donald Trump because he was down in the bunker. And they said how weak he was because he was down in the bunker during an attack on the Capitol. It just didn't happen to be during an election, so that doesn't count, right?
Right.
Anyway.
Later in the same boat. I will tell you this, that when this is over, we need to shake hands this election, and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
It's not going to happen.
Margaret?
No.
Did you want to respond to that?
Apples to oranges.
Yeah, that's whataboutism, right? Yeah, no, I don't fucking believe that shit because it's not apples and oranges.
Because the argument on January 6th is the actions that Trump did, not what other civilians were doing.
What did Trump
That's
do?
the difference.
What did Trump do?
Did Trump do it?
According to the case, he tried to have false electorates certified. Is one thing. It's a whole bunch of shit.
Well, that has nothing to do with January 6th. That's stuff he was doing on a state level in states. That's nothing to do with January 6th. He was trying to get. He was trying to get like in Georgia. He was trying to get the governors to say that, hey, we know this was fucking bullshit. You should get new electors in there. That had nothing to do with that wasn't January 6th. So those are two different things. What he didn't do anything that had anything to do with January 6th. In fact, quite the opposite. He multiple times on Twitter came out and tried to tell people to calm down and be peaceful and don't fucking bum rush the Capitol and all this shit. Okay.
Well, also just like the video.
January 6th had nothing to do with him. If you want to talk about those phone calls, which I've heard and we've all heard, where he's talking about fucking Georgia's electors and shit like that, look, that was some fucked up shit, and he should have kept his mouth shut, to be honest.
Well, and here's the other thing about January 6th, dude. On a coin flip, I could have been there because no one knew beforehand what it was going to be or what it was. It wasn't some pre-planned, premeditated overthrow of the government as the left would fucking have everyone believe. But in spite of that, the people who were there who were charged with crimes were fucking persecuted to the maximum extent of the law possible. There's like stories that are just appalling of like dudes getting home from jail and immediately committing suicide because of how much it's ruined their lives. Or another guy who died in prison from bed bug bites waiting for a fucking trial, right? Like these things are fucking awful. And they happen to people who were like me. I was going to be there for that or the 20th. I didn't know which one. And I flipped a coin basically to decide which one I was going to go to. And thank God I fucking landed on the 20th because nothing was happening and I wasn't charged for any crimes because nothing happened that day, right? No one talks about January 20th. They talk about January 6th. So had that coin been on the other side of that, I very well could have been in a position, and there are people who were there recording who didn't do anything, who someone said behind them, get them, or something like that. And then the FBI came and knocked in their door and arrested them and threw them in prison and made them prove in court that it wasn't them who said get them from behind the camera. right? And like that's totally stories of that happening where dudes spent months and months and months and months in prison, fucking abused by guards, all kinds of fucking crazy shit. January 6th people are victims of the government, hands down. There are a few people who did some things
100%.
wrong. There are a few people who broke the law. The punishment that those people got for breaking the law well exceeds the fucking crime, because they tacked on this extra crime on top of it, trying to go after a president to keep him out through lawfare. And it's obvious as anything can get that that's the ultimate purpose, but they use those people as cannon fodder for a political reason to keep someone out of office so that they can keep power. They don't care who they throw in the dungeon and throw away the key on, as long as the fact is that at the end of the day, they get to keep their power. And that's ultimately what this is about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 100%, I could have been a victim of that too, because no one who showed up that day was like, I'm here to overthrow the government. Not one fucking person went to DC on January 6th with that fucking goal in mind. Not one.
How long did they suppress that video of Trump?
What'd you say?
It was to delay it. It wasn't to overthrow it.
No, I was going to go there because it was a fucking Trump rally. Because it was a planned Trump rally for January 6th for months beforehand.
Right.
It wasn't about the election hadn't even happened yet when I bought the ticket.
Trump is on record. They don't deny this, that they were trying to delay it's not deniable.
Oh, I'm talking about from a person on the street who was thinking about going there. Right, that's not why anyone bought a ticket months beforehand and planned to go to a fucking Trump rally in Washington, D.C. before the election even happened. Period, dude. And that's 80% of the people who were there, because you can't just go to Washington, D.C. on a whim. You got to plan that shit months in advance.
The argument that is laid out
is wrong, but go on.
No, because they actually use the indictments to make their case.
Right, indictments and arrests and convictions, and unfortunately,
because I never
where
know
in
what
Washington, D.C., which is 98% Democrat and would fucking convict a potato as long as it was against Donald Trump. Fuck that, dude. I don't believe that shit for a second. And you can see this fucking lawfare and this unfair application of the law in the United States against people who politically disagree with the powers that should not be right now. And it's blatant and it's in front of your face. It's in front of your fucking face if you just look at it, dude.
Yep.
How do you not see it?
So is the indictment.
What indictment?
Well, here's the thing. He never got charged with anything on January 6th.
What indictment? The one that he was... Who got indicted for what? The one that
the one that the Supreme Court had to go out of the way and say you can no longer
out because it wasn't actually an indictment from the fucking way that indictments work against a president? Because that's not the way indictments work, dude.
I never know what we're actually discussing. I could easily prepare a whole bunch of shit to go over this, but I don't have it offhand.
Well, that's not how all this work, dude. It's not like I have like a prepared fucking comment. We're just talking about shit. So if you can't back up what you're saying, then don't say it.
Oh, I can't. I'll send you I'll send you a debate you can listen to that have all the resources off of the core things, all of the shit that Giuliani says. Yeah, I know I lied. It's my First Amendment right to lie. They go over the speeches. They go over the speeches that they all did that day.
So okay. So let's So I think I know what you're talking about. So you're talking about because they used as evidence to say Donald Trump incited violence on January 6th. They used as evidence, which they did, multiple speeches that he had given since the election where he said the election was stolen. And Rudy Giuliani had said the same thing publicly many, many, many times. And their defense was, well, twofold. One, because it was in the line of presidential duties and all this stuff. He can't be indicted for anything. That was one side. The other side was Donald Trump. And in this case, Rudy Giuliani gave their opinion about what had happened. And their opinion is well, no, I'm just telling you what their defense was. What their defense was that they gave their opinion on what happened, and their opinion is protected by the First Amendment. It's freedom of speech. And so you can't say that they're freedom of speech when they're not outwardly going and telling people to go commit acts of violence. is somehow inciting violence when they're just giving an opinion that they had no indication or no reasonable belief would result in acts of violence. That was their defense. Is that what you're talking about?
No.
Then what are you talking about? Because you're talking about January 6th, right?
It's a whole bunch of shit. Maybe sometime we can listen to all this together. I would love to have your opinion on it. I don't remember all of it offhand because it was a 6-hour video of all of the shit that they were doing that day.
And let me just say this, man, I fucking love you. I get heated about this shit because of the reason that I very easily, very nearly got swept up into it. You know what I mean? And at no point would it have ever been my intention to anything that's ever been alleged in this whole thing, not to delay things, not to cause violence, not to fucking overthrow a government. Nothing was ever in my intention. It was just to go there and record what was going on. Right?
No, I think that is what you're supposed to do if you think an election was stolen.
And there were a lot of people who thought that, and they were also there, and they got heated. And I mean, honestly, things went too far that day. But I don't think that Trump specifically, and I think if he had specifically said something to crowds that was like, you know, inciting them to violence, then he would have been like charged and convicted of that crime, right?
It was the 3-letter alphabet gangs that caused all that bullshit to pop off in the first place.
I've literally heard every word
they tried to get him.
Spoke and tweeted that day, and he said and tweeted absolutely nothing to incite violence.
Are you saying?
And they really tried to get him. They really tried to get him very, very hard, and they couldn't because he didn't say anything, because he didn't do anything, and because his actions that day were in line with a person who wanted the crowd to be peaceful, right? And it just didn't happen that way. And that, like, call it what you will, you know, blame it on whoever you want. Say whatever it was that the people were doing that were trying to do things. I don't know, right? But I know this, that the majority of the people who were there were probably like me, where they heard about a Trump rally. They were, you know, scared about the future of their government with Joe Biden being a potential runner and winning the election potentially, because the election hadn't even happened yet, and bought their tickets and got on planes and went to Washington, D.C. on January 6th. With the intention of going there for a Trump rally. And it just, I mean, agent provocateurs, maybe. There's been that thrown out there. Who knows how many fucking FBI or CIA or whatever agents were in the crowd
that day.
Who knows how many BLM or Antifa people were there wearing Trump hats? Who knows how many people were there in Trump hats who actually like believe in Trump and thought that he got everything stolen from him, who were there to delay things, like you were saying. Maybe there were some of those. I don't know.
Well, but that again, to me, that's not the point, because that's not what most people are talking about. And most people are talking about the idea that Trump intentionally fucking tried to overthrow the government. That rhetoric has been repeated over and over again. Never mind the fact that all evidence points to the exact opposite. 3 weeks before January 6th, the FBI came to him with a report showing that they were reporting that upwards of 100,000 people were going to be there that day. And the first thing he fucking did was go to Congress and say, you need to bring the fucking National Guard in. And they fucking refused him. He said, there's going to be a lot of people here. They're going to be protesting on the day of the certification. You need to get security around the Capitol. That has been well fucking documented that he asked for that. And Nancy Pelosi on fucking tape admitted that it was her fault that she didn't fucking do it. I've seen the goddamn words coming out of her fucking mouth talking about how Trump asked for that.
Well, and then there's this part.
She refused to do it. He did everything he could, including on that day, multiple tweets that Twitter at the time fucking started censoring and cutting off, where he was tweeting out to people because it was the only way to get a hold of people, because the fucking Secret Service wouldn't let him go outside. He started tweeting, asking people to please be calm, please leave, please stay off of the Capitol grounds. Tweets that later became fucking public after Twitter uncensored them. But on the day it was happening, Twitter fucking was censoring everything he was fucking trying to say. So this fucking bullshit rhetoric that he intentionally was doing shit and that he's to blame for what happened on January 6th is just that. It's fucking bullshit rhetoric. There is a million things proving that he did not do that he tried to fucking stop it starting 3 weeks before it even fucking happened and was refused at every fucking avenue. Everything he fucking did to try and either stop it beforehand or get more security there or on the day of try to talk to the people there and say, guys, calm the fuck down.
Well, and then I forget what the exact charge is, but a lot of the January 6th people got like, assaulting officer with this extra charge of what you were just saying, in fairness, about intentionally trying to delay the vote or whatever it was. I forget what the charge is, but it's something like that.
Delay and obstruct.
Of Congress, specifically of Congress.
This has anything to do with what the people did. That's stuff I'm referring to.
Right. Well, hold on. Let me finish my point real quick. Is the people who were charged with crimes and put into prison for 10, 20 years for knocking over a fence, right? The reason that they got 20 years for knocking over a fence was because it was with this enhancement of, well, you were trying to delay the act of Congress or something like that, right? Well, and I'm not exactly 100% versed on this, but I do know this for a fact, that the Supreme Court took on that specific instance of that law and the application of it and said to the lower courts, including the courts in D.C., that, hey, guys, you're misapplying this. That's not what it refers to. I'm not sure what the nuance or the language or the whatever it was, but when the Supreme Court says, hey, you're misapplying a law, the lower courts, the way that it's supposed to work is the lower courts say, oh shit, you're right. Sorry, Supreme Court, we'll fix it. And then they start doing things right. But because of the way things work in Washington, D.C., well, the people who've already been convicted and are doing time in prison are going to have to go through the due process of, like fucking appealing their cases and then waiting for years in prison until their case gets heard. In meantime,
there were some of these people that were in prison for 16 months after the Supreme Court told them they're misapplying the law.
Right.
16 fucking months they stayed in prison after that. After the Supreme Court was like, dude, you're fucking up. You're misapplying the law. This is not how these charges are supposed to be applied. You should be charging these people with the actual thing they did, not what you're presuming the reason why they did it was. Did they cause property damage? Charge them with that. Did they trespass? Charge them with that. You can do that all you want to those people. Fucking charge those people with that. But you're applying things to them that does not apply in this circumstance. And these fucking courts just fucking kept they pushed the court dates out for all these people so that these people would sit in prison for anywhere from, some of them sat in prison for 6 months, some 8, some for a year, some for up to 16 motherfucking months before they even got their day in court.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. I mean, as far as I'm concerned,
it's not what I'm referring to.
Well, that's what I'm referring to. I'm not referring to what you're referring to. I'm referring to the political prisoners of the Democrat Party that are political prisoners in the United States that are there in prison because of their, like, the clout that it gives them politically in an election year. That's it. And like, I don't know how people on the left could see that and understand it and be okay with it. Like, I can see how you can see it and not understand it.
We have been othered because both sides have spent fucking decades othering the other side to make us feel like the other side isn't fucking human. So they don't give a shit anymore. Your average Democrat voter does not give a shit that people are literally sitting and rotting in prison for fucking property damage. And they're sitting in prison without a court date for 16 fucking months. They don't give a shit.
I believe it has to do
them. If it had been Trump doing it, they would care. But because of the fucking divide and conquer nature of politics in this country, where we have spent all our fucking time just fucking trying to ram down everybody's throats that people who disagree with you on 1, 2, or 3 different topics are somehow not human and not deserving of any fucking human compassion or emotion, or you should just view them as fucking robots who need to be fucking locked away and destroyed. That's where we're at this country.
Well, let me ask this. How many times since January 6th has the left taken over,
the courthouse or the municipal buildings or whatever and stop
dozens of times
Yeah,
all
there's
over
a bunch
the
of
country.
state houses, and there's at least 40 at this point.
How are they not
I'm
being
not
charged with similar
I'm
shit?
not against civilians doing that. If you think your system is fucking you over, you should do something about it.
But the point
I'm
is
not-
that they're
I'm
not
talking
going
about
after
what
the
Trump
left for it. They're
did.
only going after the right.
Because it's not the politicians that are there doing it. It's the fucking people. That's the difference.
Well,
Actually, the difference in
okay, if
that
you're
case
saying
is
that,
it's
I
an
remember when.
actual insurrection at the state level in furnace. And they
Wait,
did it
you're
here
talking
at least
about the
3 times.
politician.
At least one of these fucking cunts that was leading this shit has tried to run
let's
against
get
Jim
back to
Jordan
what-
for Congress at least
Wait,
twice
wait,
now.
wait. Let's go back to the politician part.
Hold on. Let's give. I mean, let Infernus make his point. He's talking specifically about what Trump did. So let him talk about what Trump did.
There's a reason he picked that date. There's a reason he tried to get Pence to overturn the votes that date on that day. And there's way more to it. I don't remember. There's so much shit. I don't know it all offhand. I'd have to go back to this document that shows, that's actually from the hearings that they did where his cabinet admits that they were fucking lying about what they thought, which elections were frauds, but it was their First Amendment right to lie and blah, blah, blah. There's a whole fucking shit to that.
No. And okay. So if we're going to separate January 6th from what Trump did that he shouldn't have done, we can do that because there's a lot of shit Trump did and said that he shouldn't have fucking done. Okay. He was caught on tape trying to get the governor of fucking Georgia to swap out electors after the election. He was trying to do a bunch of shit that, while I think that 2020 was the biggest instance of election interference in our country's history,
And I don't deny that either,
I
dude.
still think Trump shouldn't have done that shit, because at that point he's trying to do the electors were already, he was trying to mess with the system. The system had already been messed with, and I get it, and he's fucking pissed off, as many people were, and he had every right to be pissed off on the election interference and all the things that happened. He had a right to be pissed off, but he was trying to do things that legally he should not have been asking people to do. Now, did he actually do any of those things? No. Did he actually bribe or manipulate or fucking exact any consequences against anybody for doing something or not doing something he told them to do? No, he didn't. Did he ask the questions? Did he try to intimidate people into doing things? Yes, he did, and he shouldn't have fucking done that. Okay? But in the end, he had nothing to do with what happened on January 6th. Did he know it was going to happen, and did he try to convince Mike Pence to fucking not certify the election? Yes, he did. Should he have done that? No, he shouldn't have. But he did not fucking rally up the troops on January 6th. As Honda already pointed out, that date was locked in for months before all this shit happened as a date where there was going to be a fucking Trump rally there that day. Period. End of story. And up to 2 months before that date, it was already, the FBI was already drawing in reports showing that it was going to be the biggest fucking march on fucking Washington that they had seen since, I believe, the Million Man March or some shit like that, or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And so this was well known before Trump was calling Georgia and asking them to switch out electors. Okay, before Trump tried to get Pence to not fucking do any of that stuff or not certify the election. That day was going to be a big day for people to show up, and the proof of whether or not he did anything to instigate people that day is out there, showing that he did not. Okay. Did he try to do some fucked up shit and try to convince some people to do some stuff that they shouldn't have done and they didn't do behind closed doors, through phone calls, talking to other politicians, things like that? Yes. Did he ever so much as even utter an instance of anything to encourage any violence on January 6th to the people that showed up that day? No, he fucking did not. And that's been proven time and time again. So there are two sides to this. He did some fucked up shit. He asked people to do a lot of things he shouldn't have.
Right. I have a debate that actually shows the clips of what he said and the two speakers before him that shows a different story. And I would love to watch this with you and
what did he
get
say?
your opinion on it. I don't remember. It's a lot of fucking info. It's like a 3-hour debate. I don't remember it all offhand.
Are you talking about stuff he said on that day to the crowd?
My question isn't that. My question is this. Is this from the January 6th commission? Is it
Well,
evidence?
it doesn't matter whether it is or
Well,
not.
no, because it does matter. Because the thing
no,
about the
correct.
January 6th Commission that matters
hold on.
is it's like, well, hold on. It's like having a fucking having a prosecution give their case without a defense ever giving theirs.
Well, okay,
so
but what Infernus is talking about, what Infernus is talking about is Trump's own words. Am I correct, Infernus?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then that's what I think.
The two
However,
speakers beforehand.
I have also seen literally every word Trump has spoken that day. And not once did he say anything that would encourage fucking people to fucking go and attack the Capitol and try and delay the election. Unless, if you're the same group of people who back in 2008 said when Sarah, what's her fuck? What the fuck was her name?
Connor.
Huckabee Sanders?
No, Sarah Palin.
Silverman.
If you're the same group of people back in 2008 who were saying Sarah Palin when she fucking drew up that congressional map and said we got to target these districts, that she was trying to say that you should kill politicians because that's what they were saying about her back then. But anybody with two brain cells to rub together fucking could look at that and go, well, obviously that's not what she was saying. Now, those same types of people tried to say that when Trump said you need to fight for your rights and you need to fight for your republic and all this shit on that day, that meant he was telling them to go fucking attack the fucking Capitol. Yeah, if you're one of those people and you hear the shit he said that day and you instantly assume, oh, look at him speaking in code, fucking we know what he means, then yeah, I can see how you would think that.
Or if you heard him say, find the votes, find me the votes. Remember that one?
Yes, well, he did say that.
He did say that, but what was he referring to? What was it specifically that he was referring to? He was referring to mail-in ballots, signature verification, matching. And if you could find enough votes that didn't have the verification matching, that it would overturn the election in Georgia or whatever it was.
Yeah, that was
so
in
therefore,
Georgia.
when he said "find me the votes," what he was really saying was, "Find me the votes that are for Democrats that also don't have signature verification."
But again, to go back to
take that and say,
I have watched ad nauseum the things he said and tweeted that day. And unless you are the type of person who thinks that Sarah Palin was also telling people to go kill people running for Congress, there's no way you believe that what he was telling people was to go out and attack the Capitol.
Well, there's no way to blame the media too for fucking skewing what he says and chopping it up and misrepresenting it and fearmongering.
Was he doing the typical fucking politician thing of telling people to fight for your rights and shit like that? Yes, he was.
I mean, would you rather have Kamala Harris in? I guess.
I mean, again, it's
like honestly, dude. Like, would you?
Yes.
There's no rational person that would think that fucking Donald. If I had been there that day and I heard Donald Trump giving a speech, I would not have thought I should go storm the fucking Capitol. I think that's what he's fucking saying. I should go delay the fucking certification of the election. I think that's what he's saying, because he didn't say those things, and nothing he said even implied those fucking things, because he was literally giving the same speeches he'd been giving for 4 fucking years. He was not talking any different. He wasn't.
That's enough. It's enough. Like, seriously, it's enough about it. I'm done talking about this, dude. Like, it doesn't matter anymore.
Oh, so when you're done, we all have to be done. Is that how it is?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we've been going fucking 2 hours and 52 minutes on this now. So
on this?
Well, on this chat.
We could go 2 hours and 52 minutes.
I feel like we've been going 2 hours and 52 minutes on this. This is an abortion.
All right, let's talk about abortion. Let's go back to abortion real quick. Hold on. No.
Oh my God. Abortion is murder. I don't know, man. I love you guys. I want you all to know that. And I got a little heated, and I'm sorry. Like I wasn't trying to get heated, but again, it's something that kind of hits a little close to me, because as a result of this, if I had just flipped a coin the other direction, they could have taken me away from my kids, probably still to this day,
Yes.
Well, and here's the thing. If we can't sit here as friends and yell at each other about shit and then still get along afterwards,
I would die for either of you. So.
Then we're basically playing into exactly what they want us to do, which is
definitely.
You have a different opinion than me, then fuck you. I don't care about you and you should die. Like, that's what they want us to do. We should absolutely be able to argue with each other and yell at each other and still all be fucking friends, because that's normal human relations.
You guys live half across the fucking United States.
Yeah, and they don't want us to have normal human relations anymore. They don't want us to be able, it used to be a time. Remember when you used to get in arguments with your fucking family at Christmas and Thanksgiving, but you were still family and still talked and still loved each other afterwards? And now we've got a rash of people out there saying, I can't talk to my family anymore because they voted for Trump or they voted for Biden. I don't talk to my family anymore. That's inhuman,
it's so
dude.
fucking stupid. That's divisive.
Or once they family members that die, like certain other YouTubers were saying.
Well, and that was kind of my point is I don't want to push anybody away and fucking get to that point where it's like, oh, well, we can't be friends anymore because of how you're going to vote in this election or because of your views on this particular subject or whatever it is, But at the same time, I do want my friends to understand me, and I want my friends to understand where I'm coming from. So that's another side of that coin is having the conversation too. So there's that.
Right.
But I just want everyone to know, especially in Furnace, nothing but love and respect, man. That's all.
No, I know that, brother. I don't take this personally.
I do have a question for Infernus, though, after a comment he made a while ago that you asked him, Honda. Why would you want to see Harris in office over Trump?
She has tits. I'm more into women.
Well, I mean,
no,
the one saving grace about Infernus is like he could vote any way he wants. It's not going to make a fucking difference in his state.
No, exactly.
Right. I just wonder why he would prefer her and then over Trump. Is my question.
I don't. I don't prefer either of them.
Okay, that's better. You just made it seem like you would rather see her than him.
What?
Who would be your ideal candidate for this race, if you could choose anyone?
Joe Jorgensen.
I don't know any politician right now.
I'm still down
that's who I voted for,
man. If we can, Ron Paul's still way more cognizant than fucking Biden is.
I voted for Joe. I voted for Joe last election, but I mean, I don't even think she broke 1%.
If she did, it was barely.
Fucking libertarians can't get their shit together, man.
Right,
man.
Ain't that right, libertarian?
I am a big fan of fucking of Kennedy. I wish that, like, if he would have been the Democrat option and it was Kennedy versus Trump, I would have a lot.
Kennedy would have a better option or chance to win.
I would have a lot of trouble deciding between them. That's all.
There's no way in hell I'd vote for fucking Kennedy because despite a couple of good things he's on, he's still rabidly anti-gun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like he's also anti-big pharma, anti-big agriculture that fucking is killing us with Monsanto and chemicals and all the stuff that's like the regulatory capture that's happened in this country. He's the only one talking about that. He's the only one who's identified that as a problem. He's the only one talking about the vaccine problems and everything else from the pharmaceuticals, and like these are huge problems that affect every single American. Period.
And I agree. The difference is when you look at things that are likely to change during a presidential term, what's more likely to change based on what's going on in the country and the levels of, let's just be honest, corruption and things that go on in the world. Is a president more likely to change how the entire fucking FDA and pharmaceutical industry works and is tied into everything in our fucking country and the entire regulatory system works? Or after a fucking mass shooting, is a president more likely to have influence over whether or not laws get passed that restrict our Second Amendment rights?
Well, I hope that they can change everything because that's why I'm voting.
I would love for him to change everything. I
that's
agree,
why I'm voting for Trump is because Kennedy is going to be running with him, and if Trump gets in office, then he's going to be appointing Kennedy to head of CDC or something where he's got actual power over this regulatory bodies that are fucking doing these fucked up things to our food and to our water and to our air and to our fucking progeny, to our future, to our children, And like we accept it because we have trust in the government that the government's out there to protect us. But when in reality, the government's just bought and paid for by these regulatory commissions and like through these regulatory commissions. And again, he's the only one who's talking about it. So yeah, like he's bad for guns or whatever, and we should fight against that. We should do everything we can to stop him on that. But when it comes to all of these other issues, I hope that they have the power to stop it in one fucking presidency, because if not, we're all fucked.
I hope so too.
We're all fucked
really
anyways.
Well, yeah, there's that too. We all fucked anyways. But I mean, if he stopped the mud hole in all these 3-letter agencies, I got no problem with that.
Hoi, oi, oi. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. So we're going to say deuces, y'all. Shall not pee in fridge. What did fucking Night Strike always used to say about Poco Ghibli or something? There was a Poco Ghibli going on. Or that was... Whatever happened to G-Webs? Is he ever around? Does he ever come on for chats? I wish he would come on.
I talk to him occasionally on Yankees chat.
Well, for some of the same reasons why I love having Infernus on is because he just has different views on shit. So it's like, you're mixing the pot in ways we don't like. You're adding ingredients that we weren't going to add in. Damn it. You're ruining my stew.
I don't like gumbo.
I'm a classic liberal.
Yeah, and I would honestly consider myself that in many ways too, which is why there are certain things that we do agree on a lot in Furnace.
I'm frustrated. I don't know what to do because from the things that I've seen, I don't think either are a great option.
Well,
I agree with that.
Unfortunately,
well, I mean that's something that we all agree on. I mean,
to be fair to Honda, there was a time when I first started doing these where you'd tell me what we're talking about, so I could do some research and have notes and be a little bit more not so scattered brain. And now that's not a thing anymore.
Now, why should you be more prepared than the rest of us, motherfucker?
Yeah, we all free balling here.
I mean, honestly, the most that I even usually do for myself is just like in the week up to a chat, I'll spend a couple hours on Twitter here and there and retweet things that I find that interest me, you know? If you really want to know what we're going to talk about and you want to know what's going to happen on the chat, just follow me on Twitter and then you'll know what we're going to be talking about on the upcoming chats.
On my job, I get to listen to a lot of fucking shit all day because during the week there's not a lot of shooters. You know, it's busy on the weekends.
He's too busy getting free shit.
Yes, I got some more free shit this week.
Of course you did.
Wait, free shit? What kind of free shit?
2 scopes, just a whole bunch of weird random shit.
Dude, you're fucking lucky, dude. Damn.
I finally got to shoot that lever action that I got free 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, how'd that go?
What kind?
It's a Marlin 39A takedown.
Wow, that's not a cheap gun, I don't think. Marlin takedown? I don't even know what a 39A is, but just a Marlin takedown.
It's worth anywhere because they don't make it anymore. It's worth anywhere between 7, 8 to 100 to a couple thousand. I'm not sure what makes it worth one to the other, but.
That's still thinking like fucking.
So what do you think of it?
It's awesome.
Like 15 to 2. But
the little bridge sight, like you put it all the way down, it nails targets at 50, like dead on. The next click is 75, then 100. I was shooting a little buoy thing out to 200 with it, no problem. So,
what caliber is that?
Fun little gun. It's a 22 long rifle.
That's what I thought. I just making sure.
I have a 94 AE and 357.
Lucky fucker.
Yeah, that's the one I care about.
All right. Well, I will end with this. If the polls were real, then why do they have internal polls? All right, y'all. Have a good night.